one. There we go. Okay, so finally today, I wanted to go over a couple pieces of this whole Repzion situation and Onision. Let me make sure I get this one here. Okay, this is. I'll do Repzion's first. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, there's been this ongoing battle between Onision and Chris Hansen and Onision and Mr. Repzion, Daniel Schulzbach. And I'm friends with Daniel. And I caught wind of this a couple of days ago when Daniel messaged me and he told me that he had just got off the phone with the local police who were coming to serve him this particular summons, that he was being basically, it's like the pre-filing of a restraining order from Onision claiming cyber stalking and harassment for 10 years. And now we got the not only that, but against Chris Hansen, there's even documentation. So this is from the Pierce County District Court, is what's coming in. This is what Repzion got, and I've seen this before because he took pictures of it and he sent it to me. But we see here that it's from Kai Jackson and James Jackson. So not Gregory, right? Not doing Gregory, but he's doing James Jackson. And he's saying here that the alleged acts of unlawful harassment occurred in the judicial district, and that they are victims of unlawful harassment conducted by the respondent and described in the statement below. So they're trying to say that he's gone after them for years, and he has been critical of them for years. Going after Onision on the internet is not anything that's like different. The only thing that's different between, I would say, Repzion and Onision is like than anybody else really is that they're in the same state, which they are, and I think they're not even far from each other either. They're like, I'm not far. I know where Onision lives, and I think I'm like 45 minutes away at max. Anyway, so they're saying here that the individual posting stalking videos, tweets about spouse and myself for 10 plus years, posted private malicious information repeatedly to the public, contacted family, refused to stop talking, stalking us, notified police, lawyers, everything else. Right now, there are elements of that are real, that aren't real. So the contacted family, that's actually true. Daniel did do that. Many years ago, he wrote a letter, or he mailed a letter to Kai's parents, and he has apologized for that. He said that was a bad move, but he did do that. Now, also saying here about my spouse and myself for 10 plus years, I don't think they haven't been together for 10 years. If I recall, they haven't been together for 10 years. So that's also kind of funny, right? Because they're saying here, this is under, they're literally doing this under oath, right? They're signing this under oath. They're acknowledging that this is true. So saying 10 plus years for myself and my spouse isn't necessarily the most accurate. I mean, look, they're asking for an order of protection from unlawful harassment and to be issued a restraining order, and to exclude the respondent from any place I may reside, so to not go to his address, or being around his address. And he also requests that the order remain effective longer than 1 year because the respondent is likely to resume acts of unlawful harassment against me, and the order expires in a year. But then that becomes a question of, First Amendment. This is a massive First Amendment situation. Now, Daniel has posted, released documentation that he received from other people that was considered private. Under the U.S. Supreme Court, that is not illegal. If you are given private documentation, you can discuss it, provided you are not the one who leaked it, meaning like you are not the one who then took it yourself and then put it out there. Someone who had to have given it to you. Someone has to have already put this out there. It's what reporters use to talk about these leaked documents. They're not the ones who leaked them, but they were given them to report it. Now, it says here that unlawful harassment means a knowing and willful course of conduct directed at a specific person that which seriously alarms, annoys, or harasses, or is detrimental to such person, to which serves no legitimate purpose. The course of conduct shall be such as would be a reasonable person to suffer substantial emotional distress and shall actually cause substantial emotional distress to the petitioner, or when the course of conduct by any person over the age of 18 would cause a reasonable parent to fear for the well-being of their child. Course of conduct means a pattern of conduct composed of a series of acts over a period of time, however short, evidencing a continuity of purpose, constitutionality. Protected activities are not included within the meaning course of conduct. So here's the thing: constitutionally protected activities are not included within the meaning course of conduct. So My interpretation of that, and I could be entirely wrong, I'm not a lawyer, but Onision's a public figure, right? He's a public figure, and it puts these things out publicly as well. Daniel talks all about what he puts out there publicly, and Onision has over 1 million subs. He's verified on YouTube. He's verified on Twitter. He's verified on Instagram. Like, he's been around for a long time. People know who he is. He's in the respective circle. He could be considered a limited liability public figure, which would still open him up in some aspects for criticism. I mean, if you're criticizing what he has done in videos and what people have said about him and people who have come forward to talk about him, that is something that's, that's First Amendment stuff there. You're not going to be able to fight that. And then, they say here, this is from Kai saying he has been stalking us for 10 years, and I believe that it's likely he would continue after a year. I understand that by submitting this position, I place myself under the jurisdiction of this court and may be subject to a corresponding anti-harassment order. Again, so he is saying here, that he's been stalking us for 10 years. All right. And I don't believe he has. So that's, and she's doing this under penalty of perjury here and saying 10 years and when that's false. I don't think they've been together for 10 years. And that's what's going on with Repzion. You got the whole thing here. And so they're going to go to court. They're going to be meeting at, I believe, in a couple weeks. And he has asked that I go with him. So I will be there for this. Then we've also got the Chris Hansen one. And I don't know if Chris Hansen's going to be there for this. I would love it if Chris Hansen shows up at this court hearing. He'd have to fly all the way, I think, from Michigan back to Seattle. Head down to Tacoma. It's in Tacoma and go. That would be awesome. That'd be great. So here's what they're saying about this one, right? So saying here that stalkers showed up at my house. Police sent them away, making numerous hate/harassment videos since August, September 2019. Chris Hansen is an investigative journalist. All right. Whether you like the guy or not, he's an investigative journalist. He is a public figure. He is well known. And yes, he's been investigating Onision. And collecting a lot of data, collecting a lot of information, collecting a lot of witness statements, getting a lot of that, as well as looking at all the data that has been put out, all the private correspondence between Onision and Kai and everyone, all putting all that out there. He's been looking at it for a long time. This is all public stuff that he didn't himself leak, so he can then look at and talk about and report on. It's, again, First Amendment. And so now, yeah, he showed up at Onision's house and wanted to talk to him, which is not illegal. Police came. And they basically said, well, you're on the street. This is a public street. You can't do anything about it. Just leave, and that was about it. And yeah, I mean, and then down here, okay, so this is what they say here. Chris Hansen showed up at my house, banged on my door while shouting through the door at my spouse and my child. The other child was at school. He brought 6 men with him who all had cameras pointed at my and my family's home. Chris Hansen has been making hateful videos about myself and my spouse as of August, September of 2000. Well, I'm assuming that means 2019, but 20 is kind of a typo. Chris Hansen has been requested to stop stalking us. He has persisted. He flew across the country from New York to bang on our door and yell at us with 6 additional men. We fear for our safety. No, you fear for your safety, not because of Chris Hansen, but because of what Chris Hansen means. What Chris Hansen signifies is the beginning of the end. Like I said, I talked about this the other day. Onision's in the end game now. Right. This is the end game. This is everything that's happened is catching up with him. Everything. This is the situation that's going to go bad because the situation is only going to progress. Now he's trying to get legal protection orders from that aren't going to hold because everything they've talked about has pretty much been put out there in the public. And that's what it is. Like, no one's gone to Onision's house. I mean, Hansen did, but as a journalist to go over there and knock on the door, he didn't yell. We have video footage of that. We have the audio, the 911 call that has got absolutely no take on, there's nothing, Hansen isn't yelling. Hansen isn't pounding on the door. You hear the dog bark, but that's about it. Saying Chris Hansen has been stalking us for nearly half a year already. We'd like to have peace for as long as possible. Chris Hansen tracks down online predators. That's been his deal. And Chris Hansen has the ability of getting stuff on Dateline, 60 Minutes, right? Getting into a lot of things. That's the whole problem with this. That's the issue with this. Hansen can do all that. This is where the problem for Onision is. Saying, I understand that by submitting this petition, I get all the same thing. I declare under penalty of perjury. Well, this is basically all just made up BS anyway, right? That's just how Onision is. He just makes all this crap up because he realizes that he's in the end game. I mean, there's nowhere to go now. I mean, like, this is when the best advice I could give Greg would be, to like stop, right? And people told me the same thing last year. It's like, oh, you need to quit. I'm like, I'm not going to quit because my stupidity is my stupidity, but I'm like not doing that. But the thing with Gregory is like he keeps, for one, violating copyright law. Like I did a video on him. He copyright struck it down. He does it to a lot of people. Eventually someone's going to punch back. And that's kind of what Hansen signifies, is that eventual karma coming back to bite you square in the ass. And that is where we find ourselves when it comes to Onision. That is where we find ourselves when it comes to what's going to be happening next. And it's not going to be good. So next week, I think is the court hearing. Yeah, it's like next week sometime. I got to find out when. So I'll be there. I'll be checking it out and I'll let you guys know what happens.